And that will cover the benefits shown in the right-hand side, everything from hardware up through the application logic and support. By concentrating there and improving that, we can enable the people to be more effective. We can allow management to improve the processes and to get more done with the people that we have. So we've talked a lot about integration. I want to try and make that a little more concrete about what it means to integrate in the way we're proposing. We want to share the data that occurs in Ocean Pines and do so in a way that allows us to communicate around the system. So we will be able to take information that occurs in all of these different places and use it in other places for the first time ever. So if people want to run a special in one of the restaurants that looks at people who like to play pickleball and combine that with a special in one of the restaurants, we'll be able to do so for the first time. And we can do that to promote events that will allow us to fill otherwise slow times in the restaurants. And we can then communicate those specials via email in real time so that we can reduce the number of empty seats at the yacht club in a slow time. We can't do that today, but we can in the future. We will be able to see if we can allow somebody access to beach parking based on their membership data, and we do that today, but we do it in a very clumsy, clunky way that, as some of you may have experienced, has interruptions and downtime. We will be able to tell people before they leave their home how many spaces are open at the beach parking lot right now. We won't be able to tell them how many will be open after they cross Route 90, but we'll be able to tell them how many are available now. We'll also be able to share functionality across the system. So we'll know at any location, are the members' dues paid, is the account current, and so forth. And we'll be able to know that between one piece of software and another. We won't have to have staff calling on the phone to other staff members to ask them to look up something in a different computer system. Instead, the computers will be able to talk to each other and take action based on those answers. And then finally, we'll be able to share across departments as well, so that membership details will be available to CPI, and they will be able to know what is the section and lot number for this address. Are the membership dues paid on this lot? We have to assess a fine because we had to go mow the grass. They can do that directly in the new system. And we can absolutely target campaigns to people who use certain amenities or people who went on a previous bus trip to Philadelphia and so forth. And we'll be able to share activities across departments in ways that we could not do before.
Okay. We are proposing that the Ocean Pines purchase state-of-the-art software that provides the most integration possible for our systems, provide the best operational support, have proactive maintenance and enhanced services available to us from that vendor. We look to use the next June through September as a time for planning for the implementation, which is a very good time to bring in consultants to help look at our processes. We start the implementation in October and do various testing and challenges throughout the next 5 months. We then would run duplicate systems in March and April, which would allow us to track and double check our work and be up and live and running in May of 2019. After months of working on this report, it is delivered today. Specific vendor information and responses submitted that were submitted under non-disclosure. That non-disclosure went both ways. Information on Ocean Pines was under protection, and so was their data for the RFP. Therefore, we will be discussing that detail in a closed session with the board later. The proposed vendor will be presented to the board by us in that session, along with that vendor's information and the reason for their proposal for their selection. And we hope to move forward as soon as possible in order to move to getting a contract in place with them. But that contract, of course, would have to come back to the board for its final approval before anything happens. This concludes this portion of our presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom and Lynn, for all that information. Next item on the agenda, Treasurer's Report. Pat?
The projected loss for fiscal year end April 30th is still 1.6 million negative variance. In the FY 2019 budget, we budgeted to recoup $600,000 of that loss. $250,000 was used from the reserve for operations in February. And this is due to the loss. We do not maintain an operating reserve. That $250,000 has been put back in the reserve, and the operating cash is $1,112,891 at March 31st. Capital purchase year to date total $811,871 replacement and $182,328 new. Monthly reports for March on the website, the standard controllers package. If you've looked at that, the capital page now has more detail. It doesn't just have departments, it has individual items purchased. And we're going to develop that moving forward into actual to budget of individual purchases, not just totals by department. The annual accounts receivable collection review by committee occurred in February. The balance as of January 31st was $967,634, and that includes the assessment, interest, and legal fees. As of March 31st, that balance was $891,006. This balance has been steadily declining since 2014. Each year since 2014, the balance has decreased. 77%, the large majority of total accounts receivable are big balances of $5,000 or more. As of January, there were 235 delinquent accounts, 142 from the current year. 84 of those accounts are with attorneys, 14 of those accounts are in payment plans, and the remaining 137 accounts, that 142 should be 137, are from the current year, and liens have been placed on those properties. Lurch, Early, and Brewer, our attorneys, have collected $278,729 since May 2017. So they've been collecting for us for about a year. Of the $95,000 in legal fees incurred in that collection process, only $4,000 has been written off to date. The legal fees are paid by the homeowner, the resident, in the settlements. This slide, which didn't come across with color, it's an update of what I presented last month, just to keep everybody in the loop on where we are. This is a list of all the findings from the management letter and additional procedures that were performed last year as part of the financial statement audit. I went through the entire list prior. I'm just going to mention the ones that have changed since presented a month ago. Under fixed assets, the ID tags was said they were in process. We started the process and realized that there may be a cost-benefit analysis needed. In other words, do we want to do the tags? Do we have to hire somebody to maintain that system, et cetera? There may be a better way to do it. That's changed. The disposal of fixed assets, That's changed. That is actually now implemented. We have a form, our Director of Finance has developed the recommended process, the recommended process from the auditors. The payroll area, you probably have to go up, the payroll area, tracking hourly employees, that was under evaluation, and it's now in process. It's still being evaluated, but we've started the process of which is best for which department. Currently, several departments do this with a different process. The next one that changed is golf accounts receivable. That was listed as implemented, and by implemented, I mean it was going to be brought from the golf course, which is where it is currently maintained, to the finance office, which is where it should be. That did not happen. That will happen this week, May 1st. That will come into the finance department. The other one that changed is computer system testing. That was under evaluation, and that has been implemented. And the implemented in this particular circumstance means that procedures have been written for the testing of any computer systems. Again, these, all these findings are on our website in detail, and you can read the auditor's finding and then our response in detail, not just yeses and nos. And as a final, I want to mention that a resident brought to my attention that in the spring treasurer's report, I mentioned excess capital was due to the pickleball courts, and this gentleman reminded me that it was not the pickleball courts, or informed me it was not the pickleball courts, it was the platform tennis courts, and I just want to correct that in that report in case anybody else noticed that.
Pat, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, the General Manager's report. JB?
Is it still morning? Okay, we're doing all right. We'll start off with the yacht club. We've cleaned the kitchen. They've begun hiring and training of the staff. Renovations are pretty much complete. Furniture has started to arrive. The chairs and bar stools arrived the other day, and then we're busy unwrapping those. Our alcohol license and our health inspections have been completed. We have those permits. Regarding mold remediation, all the work is done. All the remediation work is done. They still have to have our electrical inspection on the install of the equipment in the attic, and that will be coming up shortly as far as those final inspections go. And we will open on what date? May 17th. That's right. Be there. Beach Club. We've done a lot of cleaning over there as well and getting rid of our old inventory. We've heard some more about that. The sprinkler system is almost done. The main floor is done. The downstairs is done, and we'll be working on that upper portion of that building. Some minor repairs over there, including we're going to use some deck over paint on the boarding up there, as well as specifically the railings, so that we eliminate splinters. And that type of thing. The alcohol license and health inspections have occurred there, and we have those permits, and so that part is almost complete as far as the building work itself. Other amenity preparations, obviously golf is going like gangbusters, and hopefully today they're making a lot of money. And I understand that our weather this coming week is excellent for all of our outdoor amenities. A lot of times people forget that, but if you about how weather impacts a lot of what we do, whether it's aquatics, golf, racket sports, all the other parks and recreation programs, special events, etc. And if you care to look at August golf numbers of last year, you can tell that when we had all that rain. The pool covers are all off. Pumps are working. I haven't heard any problems there. The grounds crew with the ball fields and all the parks. A lot of things with racket sports, all the courts and everything. A lot of little touch-ups here and there. Just getting everybody's showing up and noticing a lot of little things. So we'll take care of all that. The pirate ship, again, a public thank you to the McMullen family for providing the funding for that. It has been relocated, if you didn't notice it already, to White Horse Park. We did remove the old little mini excavator, if you would, that was in the ground. I know the kids like that, but it had been welded several times, so we'll look to replace that at some point in the future. But the pirate ship is front and center. The Sanctuary Crabbing Pier, I'll make my news with this one. We received the inspection report on that yesterday. So I wanted to share that briefly with you, and we'll get that information out. But it was done by J. Stacy Hart and Associates, cost us $800. They looked at the history of the facility, having been built around '93. The floats are composed of tires filled with foam. Matter of fact, we have, just as a side note, that's pretty much the way all of our floats or all of our floating decks are done with the tires, and quite frankly, that's news to me. I'm used to dealing with actual floats that are designed for that purpose. So anyway, the photograph, I'll read from that report now. The photographs clearly show the structure is in dire need of replacement. The existing galvanized hardware has deteriorated to the point that some pieces are breaking off due to severe corrosion. The ends of the bolts have mushroomed such that you could not wrench them off, and they would probably require torching or cutting to disconnect for replacement. Quite a few of the other ends of the timber members have split where they were nailed to the joist. Some of the tire floats are missing, and others have become disconnected due to the broken hardware. It appears some of the connection pieces have been replaced previously and have since corroded since replacement. Based upon the visual inspection, it appears that the existing structure is beyond repair. We recommend repair by replacement of the gangplank, pier, and T-dock in the same footprint. We recommend that due to safety, the existing floating pier be closed beginning at the gangplank until full replacement. That includes their recommendation. So I know that was news to everybody. Again, that was hot off the press, so I thought I'd share it. What we need to do next, if the board directs so, we could proceed to develop a scope of work and issue a request for bids to do that if the intent is to replace it. We also need to deal with this whole question of parking over there and how we get people in ingress, egress from that area in relation to yes, the residents want it, but also you've got neighbors that are concerned about how do we handle that parking issue when more than 3 people, groups want to use it at the same time. So there's some planning that's got to go into that versus just get it done. A couple other things that I didn't put on the list there. We received a check for $12,000 for PRMC as a diamond sponsor for our 50th anniversary celebrations. So that will go to good use throughout the rest of this year. The reserve study, the list has been, the asset list has been scrubbed yet again and sent to DMA, our reserve specialist, and they will be updating their main bulk of work for that. And then as soon as I get word that that has been completed, we will be ready for a joint meeting of the Board of Directors and the Budget and Finance Committee. We'll need to look at calendars, folks, on when we might could do that, to have that presentation by DMA and make some decisions on those 3 questions I always bring up every time I get a chance, and that is what percentage level do we want to fund the replacement reserve, what inflation factor do we want to utilize, and what minimum balance do we want to maintain in that replacement reserve account. And with that, I think we're done.
JB, thank you. So,
Thanks, Doug. Just a couple of questions for the GM. First, earlier during the technology work group presentation, Lynn mentioned that a lot of the upgrades with regard to our network system have taken place, and it's relatively robust compared to past. However, on occasion, 1 or 2 sites still go down. I'd like to know if we are aware of what those sites are. Hopefully it's not a beach club or yacht club, because of the summer operations and a busy season. That also affects perhaps the point of sale systems, and we know we had the problem with that last summer. So I just want to make a note of this and also ask you if in fact these are the issues. I hope we are doing whatever we can before these amenities are open so that we don't experience downtime with a critical network that needs to be online. Thank you.
Sure. Next item on the agenda, public comments. I'll remind you, please state your name and your address.
Good morning. Tom Janicek, 17 Lookout Point. First off, I want to real quick, from our Environmental and Natural Assets Committee, in the last few months, we've put together a lot of legwork on putting together a bid packet or basically a packet on how to repair the mailboxes. All the mailboxes, we have a map with every mailbox on it, which mailboxes are deteriorated, all of the pictures, a concept, a plan, and an estimate to do the plan. Pat has the whole thing. She's got it. She's going to present it to everyone on the board so you can take a look at it. And I just want to let you know that it's there, let the public know that it's there, and if you could get together at some point in time, put together an RFP to see if we could actually get it in the budget for next year or the year after. I know it's a big stickler for a lot of people, so hopefully that's a starting point. Secondly, I want to thank the board for allowing Denise and JB to send out the email about the CAFO that's going in over on Peerless Road. If you haven't heard about it, there's paperwork on the desk over there with information. It's basically 3 600-foot chicken farms that are going in over there without any regulation or any monitoring for the runoff. So it's really a bad situation. There's emails. The date for the last email public comments is Monday. So if you could, anybody you know, make sure they got the information. Anybody in the Pines, if you're watching this, the information is on the Aztec Coastal Trust Facebook page or their website for who to email at the Maryland Department of Environment. I want to thank Slobodan for being at the meeting. Thank you very much and putting forth. We are putting together a coalition of people from each one of the communities, River Run, we're hoping to get Whitehorse Park, Piney Island, Ocean Pines, obviously, the church, which is right next to it, Shell Fire Department. We're going to have a meeting this week, and as we're going to try to put together with Kathy Phillips from ACT a plan on how to go about trying to stop this. Right now, it's already permitted under an old regulation that most of the commissioners thought it wasn't allowed to be permitted under, but it is. So therefore, they're allowed to put a retention pond right next to Middle Branch, which goes right into Shingle Landing Prong, which goes right into St. Martin's River, which has been cleaned up after they got rid of the Cooking Good chicken plant. So we're really, really, really doing everything we can to stop it. The more emails and the more correspondence that goes to MDE and your commissioners, don't be afraid to send something to Chip and to Jim and to Elder, because they're the guys who approve this. So I just want to thank you again for letting that get out there. I'll get back with everybody, and once we put together a plan for what we're going to do, we'll let everybody know, and thanks again for getting that out, and thanks, JB, I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bloom at 65 Martinique Circle, and I have a few questions and just a statement. One is thank you for the public meeting that you held. It was nice. I hope we see more of it, and I heard we might. Another thank you is for answering my question that I had that day. I appreciate all the answers that went up on the board. My one question is, when we said we were going to have everything come electronically when we requested it, will it still, do you have a date of when, like if we request something today, when it might come? Second question, or an ask, is if you would ask the AGH if they would also look into what might be happening with the chicken farm that's being built and voice their concerns with the runoff in the ponds, with the dead chickens and all of that. When we're looking at the cost benefits, and I heard 15%, are we just looking at the employee costs for salary, or are we including those benefits that the employees get? their insurance, their ability to go to functions, eat at restaurants? Are you including the full benefit of what the employee receives working for Ocean Pines? And thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Mather, and I live at 21 Sandpiper Lane. I'm here on behalf of the Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Company. We have just initiated a new auxiliary, so we're looking for members. Anyone would like to become a member of the auxiliary and help to support our volunteer fire men that are constantly putting in hours for training to maintain their certification. Going on many calls. There was a really good article in the Courier, I don't know if anyone read it, by Chief Grunwald, who works his full-time job, but then puts more than full-time hours in as a volunteer to make sure that when you call 911 and need an ambulance because you're having a medical difficulty or your house is on fire, that a crew gets there and has working equipment. One of the things as the auxiliary, we're trying to raise money because the budget that they have is not increased in 8 years, but the number of calls that they have has drastically increased. They don't only go to calls here in our community, but they also back up Berlin, Bishopville, Ocean City, which also back us up as well. One of the things we're looking for are ideals on, where we can go to fundraise in the community so that everyone knows that we're out there. Other suggestions on fundraisers that we can have. In the past, they have sold or fundraised a house, built a house. This year we're doing just cash, 3 cash prizes. We've got some members coming in with great ideals on how we can fundraise to help replace right now the aging breathing apparatus that the firemen wear to go into the fire so that they don't get smoke inhalation and the toxins that are burning. Those are failing very quickly because they're have significantly aged. I know that there's 5 on the budget for this year to be replaced, but we have 55 members. So 5 out of 55, they have to test them every month. That's state law. And one or two maybe failing or close to failing, and just because it passes now, the next time they wear it in a fire doesn't mean it's not going to fail, because the seal has to fit around their face. So again, it's people putting their life on the line with significantly aged equipment that I think people forget about the service until they absolutely need it. We love all our extra amenities, and that's great, and I appreciate the volunteer time that you as a board put in, because my husband is a professional firefighter, but he also is volunteering in every community we've lived in, and I see the hours he puts in to train volunteers that don't have that professional experience. He took over the cadet program here, so we're working with high school people that are doing the fighter program that hopefully will then join and replace our aging members that now find it too hard to wear all that heavy equipment and go in and fight those fires. So I'm just asking the community to pitch in to either give some time or help us come up with new fundraisers that the community would be interested in helping us to replace some of this equipment so that we can, our men and women can be there when you have that emergency, because this is a very important, I believe, service that gets forgotten when we're talking about budgets. Thank you.
I'm Brett Hill, 3 Windward Court. First of all, JB, thanks for the email last night with the follow-up from my question last month about the golf inventory. I had some follow-up questions, but I'll shoot you an email on that. Second, in the newspaper in the last week or so, there's been discussion about the Elections Committee looking at reforms on advertising in Pines publications. While the Election Committee is looking at that advertising policy, I would also encourage them to look at some type of campaign financing restrictions or covenants to go into that resolution. In local government, state government, federal government, there are restrictions on how people can raise money in campaigns, how much can be raised, and Ocean Pines has none. And open financing into a campaign can really lead to buying of votes. And the board is a service, and you all spend a tremendous amount of your time, and that's a thank you to the community for that service. But it's important that it's your opinions and your time, and not who wrote you the biggest check as to how your vote gets cast on any given motion or resolution. So I think that's something that should be in consideration, if not now, but in the near future. The other item regarding the motion from last July with the purchase order logs and check registers, I know I got an email that they'll be coming out next week. I hope as a board that it's not just me asking this question, and that over the last few months, you guys have been looking at those reports, and now it's just a time constraint on getting them to me, because looking at those reports is part of your duty and should be part of the understanding of what's going on a daily basis in the association. And I hope that as a board, you're going a step further, and the people who are signatures on the bank accounts are looking at the bank accounts, looking at these documents. And the reason that motion was out there is because the board has a fiduciary responsibility to look at our operations, how our money is being spent, and not just taking the summary report that's shared with the community every month as to how we're doing. There's a lot more behind that, and looking at that data is an extremely important piece to making decisions, especially, as the board goes through its yearly budget cycle, to know, when, golf says they're spending, $1 million or whatever it is across the golf operations, where do those dollars actually go? How are we spending the $130,000 that's in the budget for chemicals, and what makes that up? Where are the vendors going in? Are we following the processes that our financial guidelines, which granted are antiquated, still have defined in there? And last, to the other comment I had from last month, and I know Mr. Maroney and I had some fun dialogue at the town hall meeting. I printed out for you, and I'll leave with you a breakdown of how I was looking at that cost per homeowner, and I still can't come to any conclusion as to how we're underfunding reserves, because the reserves, cash on every account, our position is extremely healthy and has become healthier year over year. And I still go back to, I don't see how the assessment increase is justified, because we keep putting more and more money in the bank, and next year we're going to add another $30 per homeowner on top of what's been excesses over the years. So I'll leave you the way I'm looking at numbers, and if it's Steve, JB, or somebody can, help me see how I'm looking at this wrong, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, Esther Diller, 9 Widows Watch. First, I want to thank the board for answering all the questions that we gave you from Stop Organization at the town hall meeting. I appreciate that. Being public, showing transparency, I think means a lot to the community. That being said, at these board meetings, you have the public comments and questions, and although I understand you can't answer them on the spot, staying in the line of what you did with the town hall meeting, I think it might be a good idea. The questions, not so much the comments, but the questions that are asked at these board meetings would be answered in the same manner on the Ocean Pines website, within a week or so. I think, again, just opens up transparency to the organization. Thank you.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. The technology work group has done a lot of work. They put in a lot of hours, and they should be thanked for that by the community. But listening to the presentation today, I do have some concerns. What we heard today was a bit of a sales pitch as well as a report. And the sales pitch was that we should buy or whatever this software or whatever we're going to use and use it in-house with our people. But that's only one option. We've heard no sales pitch for the other option, which is outsourcing. I'm not so sure which way we should go, but at this point in time, based on all I've observed, I don't think this board knows which way we should go yet either. Mr. Herrick has been pushing for a RFP on the cost of outsourcing our financial work. The board discussed, turned that idea down and suggested possibly a request for information. But the technology work group is pushing for the board to go and approve and implement a plan that they have obtained prices on through their RFP process. We don't know what those, the people in the community don't know what those prices are. I've heard that they could be in the range of $500,000. So, and the other troubling thing is, we weren't told what the cost was. They have the prices, but they haven't told us. The board packet says that that will be revealed, or whatever is going to be revealed, in a closed session. Now, I can't imagine why, under the Maryland HOA Act, that telling people in the community what software is going to cost is somehow injurious to the association. I don't think it ought to be discussed. Now, he mentioned non-disclosure agreements. There may be some things in those proposals that shouldn't be disclosed to the public and that these people don't. But I think at the very least, I think the people in the community should know who we're dealing with and what their price is to do whatever it is we want to do. And I don't think that kind of a thing should be discussed in closed session. I would just urge the board to, if necessary, first do a request for information that Mr. Herrick talked about for outsourcing, and then proceed from that to an RFP for outsourcing, total outsourcing of it. Then you have the bids that this group has prepared, and the board can then look at both of the options from a RFP actual bid standpoint and make an informed decision. And I trust and I hope that that's what the board will do. Thank you.
Other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public comments section of the meeting. Next item on the agenda, capital purchase requests. AB. But this is over replacement item. EL done about 8 years ago. Old habits. It replaces the Senpro that has 3,651 hours on it, and its second engine hydro pump needs replacement. It's fully depreciated, and so that's that one.
JB, did you just say fully depreciated?
I did.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
The triplex mower at $35,000. Our bid came in at $25,000. Excuse me. JB, I think the consensus here is let's do them one at a time and let's just get through. All right. Because I think the concept of fully depreciated, making sure we've got it covered in reserve, so on and so forth. So, Tommy, very good idea. So go back to the sand rake. Any other questions on that? I mean, you know, a reminder to everybody, all these are budgeted for. They're all out of replacement capital reserve. So they went through that whole process of the budgeting aspect, budget and finance last year, board, and then at this point, it's a matter of getting the bids and making that purchase.
I do have a question and a comment for the general manager. During the budgeting process back in February, I have expressed the concern over our cost of golf maintenance. I stated and I provided benchmarks and industry averages nationwide as well as regionally for what really the cost of golf maintenance perhaps should be and how we compare to the national statistics. We seem to be much higher, especially from labor point of view, and then overall as a number for 18-hole golf course. My concern with these requisitions, with these purchases of equipment, how does that impact the board and the management if we invest in this new equipment, Yet we need to be looking at a bigger picture, which is how do we maintain a golf course going forward? How do we reduce, contain the costs so that we're in line with the national average, industry average? My fear is that if we are making these investments and replacing pretty expensive equipment, that we are locking ourselves into what is a foreseeable maintenance of our golf course in the next few years that might limit ourselves to looking at other cost-saving measures going forward. And that's, that is basically what's running through my mind before I even vote on individual equipment replacement. And I also want to share that with my colleagues.
Other discussion? All right, would we prefer to move forward one item at a time for approval? Yes. All right, let's do it that way. So unless there's any other questions regarding the sand rake, the associated costs and the recommendation from the GM on that expense, I'll ask for a show of hands if we approve the expense of, what was it, 16,000 out of replacement reserves to cover 17. Okay, out of replacement reserves to for that purchase. So all those in favor? Okay, please record. All right, JB, the triplex mower.
The triplex mower, this one is it's on our asset list at item 1604, and again, a lot of the reserve study has been scrubbed and updated with correct information. It's the piece that we're replacing is fully depreciated. The EL was expired in 2014, actually. The budgeted amount was $35,000. Our bid actually came in at $25,000, so we're saving there. This replaces the John Deere mower that has 2,215 hours on it.
Just one quick question. All right, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, this is the same question I brought up at the last meeting in regards to this particular unit, which hadn't been answered yet. According to the capital project worksheet that was in a budget book, projects for a triplex mower to replace a mower with 2,215 hours due to high hours, and it's to replace a T-box mower. Now, the bid sheets are all for greens mowers. Every one of them is a gas riding greens mower. From what I understand is last year we approved a capital purchase of a greens riding mower to replace a few workers as a cost-effective way of doing the greens, which was a new capital item. So my concern here is you're asking for, and what's in the budget book is for a T-box mower to replace one that we have, yet every one of these bids is for a greens mower, which to me seems like it's a new item, not replacing a T-box mower.
So JB, the follow-up on that, can we look into that just to make sure that we are replacing an existing piece of equipment with a like piece of equipment? And the question would be, if we can't get a resolution prior to the next board meeting to approve it, how would it affect the golf course operation? Just a second.
To pass on the triplex mower. Yeah, 1604, which is the greens mower, and it says it's a.
Does anybody have any other comments on this particular one? Tom brings up a point. I think it's worthwhile to get some additional information. Anybody have a problem with that? JB, is there any way you can, Cheryl suggested sending a text message to Andre to get some additional information, maybe right now if it's timely? So we don't, I guess the concern would be if we do nothing right now, would it have any effect on the golf course operation? I think
Right.
is really my concern.
Okay.
All right, we'll just move on to the next one, take that under advisement. If you can get information right away, great. If not, we can address it at a later time. All right, and the next one is the golf trim mower.
Correct. That one's fully depreciated. It was 2013 replacement date. Budgeted amount is $35,000. We are right at a little above that, $35,197. This replaces the Toro 3500D Groundsmaster old mower with 3,120 hours on it. Mows trims around the greens, bunkers, and tees.
Any questions?
You know, I remember last month when Director Herrick brought up the issue on the other mower, I also asked, and I was reminding myself and all of us that last year we approved and purchased, I think, 3 mowers for the golf course and at a tune of $130,000. I'm not a golfer. I don't know really what this new equipment is and how does it relate to the mowers that we bought last year, the 3 mowers. So I would like some, some explanation on that, because at this point I'm really, not sure. How does this new requisition, new equipment request relate to the 3 mowers that we already bought last year?
Just something that I recall from that discussion, and I may not have this correct, the mowers we bought last year were new mowers. They were not replacement mowers, and so it was a new functionality. They were actually replacing people that were using walk-behind mowers or something of that fashion. So
That would be a green
and that's the new ones we bought last year. Right. But that's the new ones that I think Slobodan,
No,
you.
they were fairway mowers that were bought. No, I think you're referring to the 2 fairway mowers that were purchased
Oh,
last
okay,
year. They were
okay.
replacement.
Is that
Okay.
the fairway mowers that are in Public Works that we're talking about replacing with the Ventrac mowers? Was the 133,000,
But if,
and they were fairway mowers, and we'll have that discussion when we get to the Ventrac stuff. But those are over in Public Works, not golf, and even though they were, and that's part of the problem, is they were fairway mowers, not Public Works mowers, but they were purchased for the Public Works Department to the tune of $133,000. We're replacing both of those. This is separate from this mower. That's that Ventrac mower stuff. And that, to be blunt, we shouldn't have bought fairway mowers for Public Works activities. And so we're replacing those 2 with the Ventrac mowers that are designed for that type of work. They have better incline issues, as well as they don't get stuck. Versus a fairway mower, which is designed for that type of turf. So again, this is different from what we're talking about with this particular mower. So I think there's still confusion over golf equipment. That's the easiest way I can say it.
is there,
Because there are designs for different things.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, just to add, on this particular trim mower, according to the capital project worksheet, it's to replace an older mower with 3,120 hours. Current decks are rusted through, bent frames for hydroslide. Decks need to be replaced, and the hydro pump needs replacement. So I believe that this is legitimate to replace
Right.
an old mower.
Particularly with the trim mower, correct.
So JB, what happened to those trim mowers that Public Works has? What happened to the trim mowers that Public Works has? Are those being used?
Those were the 2 that were sold.
Oh, okay, gotcha, thanks.
All right, any other questions regarding the trim mower? All right, so by show of hands, all those in favor of letting the GM proceed with that purchase? Okay.
So remember, comment, President Parks, the sale of the asset, now we have a new process, so that would be managed differently.
Okay, next item is the golf utility carts.
All right, the simplest thing I'm gonna say about the golf utility carts is they are way old and they're all electric. I'll be blunt, why we would buy electric utility carts, granted, and I would like to have had us get electric carts for the golf course itself, but that's another issue, and I know there's complications with that process too, because you got to have all the way to power them up and everything else. But as far as utility carts go, there is no sense in having those being electric. Those should have been gas. So this is purchasing 5 replacement carts, about $8,800 each. With Cushman, our budgeted amount was 50, and we'll come in underneath that right at 44,000.
Are the ones being replaced fully depreciated?
Yeah, they're way done.
Is there any resale value on those old mowers, or are they just
The
disposable
old
assets?
utility carts?
Yeah, I'm sorry, utility carts, my fault.
Probably not much. We may get a few $100 out of each one of them.
All right. Any other questions on the utility carts? All right, by show of hands, we authorize the GM to move forward with that purchase? Okay, very good, thank you. Next item is the Ventrac mowers.
All right, the Ventrac mowers, these replace the 2 Fairway Textron mowers that we bought in 2014, I understood. And I understand maybe it was last year or something. But it was $133,000. Again, these were not fully depreciated. Those have been sold. They were bought for Public Works. These weren't related to golf course. Again, these are the wrong pieces of equipment for the purposes of Public Works. These were what was purchased. What they're replacing were fairway mowers. And you just can't use a fairway mower when we're mowing sides of roads. Maybe the median, the way our current median is, yeah, you could probably use a fairway mower there, but not out near the library and the pond and the medians where we've got a lot of wet, et cetera. Yeah, we get stuck, lots of, there was, no, it's the next one that has a bunch of repair issues. So anyway, we're replacing those with 2 mowers. Total for the 2 is $66,773. That's a little bit under the budget of $70,000. But the downside here was the 2 that were sold were not fully depreciated, but they were the wrong mowers.
Any questions on the
So we're on the Ventrac mowers? Is that what we're on?
Correct.
right now?
These are for Public Works.
This says new on the
And
capital.
that's incorrect.
Okay.
That was a mistake.
Okay, I missed
They
that.
are replacement.
Okay, I
Again, the
missed that.
replacement of,
Okay.
Another question?
Yeah, thanks. So basically, we bought this a couple of years ago. We have now gotten rid of those 2. What did we get in terms of the value when they were sold, auctioned off? Just for the record.
we got 40,000, which was 20,000 each. And they were originally, I guess, less than 70, 60 some odd thousand apiece, 65, 66.
So we spent $130,000 2 years ago. We got 40,000.
Right.
And now
then
we are
and you had
spending
the depreciation
70,000.
in there too for the 2 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions on these mowers?
Yeah, I do. A quick question, just so I'm clear on this. These mowers were originally for the golf course that Public Works was using?
No, they were for Public Works.
They were? Okay.
They're
Oh,
just, the type of mower it was fairway, but they were for Public Works.
Okay, my only question, because the purpose of the project, these will add useful pieces of equipment to our fleet. It doesn't say anything about replacement.
It should have said replace. It should have read, these will replace pieces of equipment, the Jacobson Textron mowers. They're known as fairway mowers, but they weren't for that purpose.
But the golf course is going to use them?
No.
No? Okay.
These are for Public Works.
Public Works only.
I think that was, part of the confusion was, everything else on that list is golf. This one was not. But yet, the name of the mowers that they're replacing were fairway mowers. That didn't mean they were used at the golf course. But that's why I'm saying we had the wrong equipment for what that purpose was.
Mr. Bailey, can you help me understand, from your perspective, I know you were not here, But why would Public Works even agree to take on the new mowers that simply have no purpose for what they needed them for to begin with? Why did?
Right. What I can surmise is that they thought they could be used for those purposes. And then when the practicality of implementation, as I like to say, that just didn't work the way they thought it would. Other than that, I don't know. But I think it was an attempt to do something, but it didn't turn out that way. And there may be something else there that I don't know about, so.
You may not be able to answer this question then. Were we misled when we approved that purchase?
I don't think that was, I don't think that was the case. I don't think it was intentional. I think there was an effort to get a piece of equipment to utilize at Public Works that just wasn't really designed for that purpose, and maybe there wasn't a full understanding of that impact. I don't know. But I don't think anything was on, I don't think that type of decision was made on purpose to deceive anybody. I think it was just it's like saying, if somebody tells you wrong information, that doesn't mean they're lying to you. So,
okay. Any other questions on this? Let's.
I have a final question just before I cast my vote. So basically, just to summarize, we did get rid of the 2 mowers. Therefore, the Public Works does need this equipment. Otherwise, it will impact their operation this summer, right? So pretty much,
yeah,
it has to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, then can we proceed to direct the general manager to make the purchase of these Ventrac mowers? All those in favor? Okay. Next item is the Z mowers.
The Z mowers are for Public Works. The budgeted amount was $24,800. Our bid, low bid, was $18,020. These were bought. They're replacing equipment that was bought in 2013. It has a 5-year estimated life on it. They are. Sorry, I can't read my own note. The big thing here is this is the packet of invoices for repairs. And we have $14,000 in repairs. 12,500 of that was in the last 2 years. So that's why this is really before you, to replace both of those.
Any questions on the Z mowers?
Yeah, just a quick question. Again, I'm not, golfer, but the general manager has experience with the equipment. Yeah. Thank you. This kind of equipment, being relatively 5-year-old, and so many problems that you described over the past 2 or 3 years, is this the equipment that is available for lease, or is this kind of thing that has to be purchased? I'm just wondering from a cost-benefit analysis.
Okay.
And obviously, this particular example does kind of beg that question, given the extensive cost of repairs.
Yeah, you can lease these types of equipment. Yeah. If you want us to look at that for this particular one. We're looking at that in the future in relation to other things.
I was just wondering from a cost-benefit perspective whether this is something that should be looked at by the management and by Public Works to see what's financially or better benefit to the association.
Yeah. The thing at this particular point in time, and not that we couldn't change it, it's not budgeted for as a lease payment. Right. But it would just require a budget amendment if we decided to pursue it that way.
Any other questions on that? Okay, then by show of hands, we direct the GM to make the purchase. All right. Maybe, just move forward. It looks like the last item here is the Gulf fuel system.
The last one is a fuel system. It says new, but we have tanks. We just don't have a monitoring system on it. And so these would replace the pumps and everything. So neither of the tanks are monitored. We're unable to detect how many gallons per unit are used, as well as what vehicle or equipment that fuel is used for. Will allow us to track the time usage, the employee accessing the unit, the amount of fuel left in the tanks, and the amount withdrawn. The budget amount was $20,000, and our quote was $17,614. There's currently no monitoring of the existing system.
Questions? Cheryl?
Is this something different than Gas Boy?
It's similar to Gas Boy, yeah.
It's not replacing Gas Boy?
Yeah.
Right.
Public Works has it, has one, but Golf Course does not.
Oh, okay, gotcha, thanks.
Any other questions on that one? All right, by show of hands, can we direct the GM to move forward with the purchase? Okay, thank you. So just as a follow-up, the only one that we still need information on is the triplex mower. So
okay.
If we can, in the interest of full disclosure, if we find that there is a potential impact on golf operations, we will try to get all the information and make a decision prior to the next board meeting if the situation dictates. All right, and we'll keep everybody posted on that.
Yes, sir.
But,
Would it make sense to vote conditioned on pending answer being provided, just justification, just for sake of expediency?
Well, I would say, I don't think we have enough information at this point. I'd rather just wait and get the information, and then we'll have everything we need at that point. All right. All right, moving on to the next item in the agenda, CPI violations. AB?
We have one this month. It's 7 High Sheriff Trail for an unregistered vehicle. Individual also is back in assessments collection. Anyway, it's ready to be forwarded to council for pursuit.
I'll entertain a motion to find the CPI violation at 7 High Sheriff Trail that they, and I'm sorry, in continuing violation. My mind is elsewhere at the moment. I'll entertain a motion to find them in continuing violation.
So moved.
Any other discussion? Close. Call the question. All those in favor of finding them in continuing violation?
Being forwarded to council.
Yeah. As we've done in the past. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right. Moving on to unfinished business. There's a motion for the Country Club RFP. What?
The motion is to direct the general manager to rebid the country club renovations with a projected start date of October 1, 2018 and completion date no later than March 8, 2019. The RFP would go out in May with the target date to award the project no later than July 1, 2018. Background: an RFP was issued to 7 construction firms based on the drawing prepared by DBF, with the desire to have the work start and be completed in time for this year's golf season, specifically the 50th anniversary tournament in June 2018. Discussion: only 2 of the 7 contractors actually submitted proposals. Neither could make the desired dates. The schedule from issue of RFP to start and the aggressive completion date desired by OPA limited the ability of contractors based on current work backlogs to plan, schedule, and meet our timeline. Given the size and scope of the project, we should rebid the project to allow full participation of contractors with realistic bidding, award, start, and completion schedules.
Is there a second? Discussion.
I'd like to make, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you want to go first? I have some major concerns about, I do believe we need to revisit this project, but I mean, back in 2016, we got 3 plans for the country club. And board approved one of the plans, which went ahead, and we had drawings made up. And we got an estimate bid on that, probably just a little over $500,000 at the time. And that was back in July, and new board came in, as what so happens in the governance Ocean Pines. New board came in and the project was stalled, and didn't get revisited until January of this past year, which a motion came out to put another set of $40,000 to have new plans drawn up. And then that got put out for bid and drawn up, and they changed the floor plans. And again, at the last meeting, this was discussed, and I asked about making sure these plans were given to the association membership so they would have full knowledge of where the project was going. And now we get some bids back over $1 million. And, you know, this cost now is almost doubled. It's been broken into different phases. There's a couple additional phases that still need to be addressed where they're looking to get county approval to change the front entrance and a grading change. Another phase for a warming kitchen. That does not even address the outside being redone and changing the siding. So we're breaking it into phases, but if you put them all together, it's well over the number to trigger a referendum for the people. So we're spending quite a bit of money here, going ahead with this new plan by the new board, and I believe it needs to be revisited, but I think that we should revisit it in a way that we bid out both sets of plans. One was approved by the last board. The plans that now are in place by this board, which is almost double. And we need to have some type of when we get the information back, we need to present this to the association membership in some form of a special meeting or a work session where they can give us some input on the plans and give us some direction and help us where we need to go. So I agree that we need to revisit the project, but because the cost almost doubled for one phase of the project alone, I believe that we need to put forth both sets of plans. And even if the first set needs to have an option for an elevator, if that's an issue as well, I wouldn't mind seeing that as an option on the first set of plans. But one board approving one set of plans, another board approving the second set, and now the cost doubles for just that one phase. I think we need to get more information.
Yeah. You want to, because I'll make a comment. Go ahead.
You know, Director Harry makes a very, very good point. And I'm not sure if maybe we should entertain really just revisiting the scope of the project as a board, because we are looking at a couple of different aspects of the renovation before going ahead with the RFP. I personally have not seen the original solicitation that was issued earlier, and I have asked for a copy because I would like to really take a look at it and see what exactly did we ask for that resulted in 800,000 plus proposals. So voting for this motion as it's presented now kind of puts things into concrete that might not allow us later on to really address the actual scope if in fact it's something that needs further consideration. So I'm just wondering whether we should really put this motion on hold or have it withdrawn, and maybe with Ted Maroney being back, maybe we can revisit this and do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, let me add some time. You brought up a good point. I was thinking along the same lines with regard to the delta in cost is caused by something, all right? And I'm not really sure what that is. I haven't been able to at least, determine what was that. I think what would be helpful is we were able to look at the old plans and try to figure out how the bidders that came back already interpreted the new plans in such a way that it caused that much of a change in cost. I'm with both of you guys. I'm uncomfortable saying let's just bid it out, because I still would like to see how it has changed between now and when the original set of plans with a just over $500,000 price tag actually happened. So I think for me personally, I'd like to have that information before we move forward and perhaps would consider that maybe now is not the time. Because, and let me also say, predicate on the fact that there's a sense of urgency, meaning although it's inconvenient not to have that part of the building operational, certainly to resolve that by spending $1 million just to make it go away is also irresponsible. So I would say, at the very least, let's look at getting some more information on this so we can do the compare and contrast. And Tom, and you reminded me of something which I think is a very good thing, is that we should have those plans out on the website, and we should solicit input from the membership so they can share their ideas, because well, I say theirs, it's our amenity, so it's just shouldn't be this and maybe a couple of others. So I like that idea. Maybe we also, if we can, find a way to get not only the current set of drawings out there, but the old plans that were there, so that everybody can do a compare and contrast.
As you may imagine, I am not at all happy about the delay of this, and if we delay it further, we will be facing yet another new board who may have different opinions again, and that's kind of what we've done in the past in Ocean Pines. We just delay, 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 and then things don't get done. We have also had a change in general manager, and so that has factored into why things have changed. When you talk about allowing membership to provide input, first of all, we can't design a facility with 8,452 different opinions about how